A well-made garment begins long before you sit down at your sewing machine. It starts with the careful preparation of your fabric. The first, most crucial step is cutting. Precision here is paramount. Even a small error can ripple through your entire project. Always ensure your fabric is pressed smooth and laid out flat on a large surface. Use sharp shears or a rotary cutter for the cleanest cuts. Take your time with this process, following the pattern lines exactly. Remember that the grain line on the pattern piece must be parallel to the fabric's selvage edge. This ensures your finished garment hangs beautifully and doesn't twist or pull out of shape. Once your fabric is ready, the next task is laying out your pattern pieces. This is a bit like a puzzle, and it requires careful thought to be efficient. Your pattern instructions will provide a layout diagram, which is an excellent guide. It shows you how to place each piece to minimize fabric waste. Pay close attention to pieces that need to be cut on the fold. You must place the cut-on fold edge precisely along the folded edge of your fabric. For fabrics with a directional print or a nap like velvet, ensure all your pattern pieces are laid out facing the same direction. This small detail makes a huge difference to the final appearance. After laying out your pattern, you need to transfer the important markings from the paper to the fabric. These markings are your roadmap for construction, showing you where to place darts, pockets, and other features. There are several tools you can use for this. Tailor's chalk or a fabric marker are excellent choices for clear temporary lines. For more detailed markings, you can use dressmaker's carbon paper with a tracing wheel. You simply slide the carbon paper between the pattern and the fabric and trace over the lines. Another traditional method is creating tailor's tacks with a needle and thread, which is especially useful for delicate fabrics where other methods might leave a permanent mark. With your fabric cut and marked, you are ready to begin the exciting process of assembly. Let's consider a few basic garments. For a simple skirt, you will typically sew the side seams first, then attach the waistband, and finally hem the bottom edge. A basic shirt involves sewing the shoulder and side seams, attaching the sleeves and collar, and then finishing the cuffs and hem. Dresses combine techniques from both skirts and shirts, joining a bodice to a skirt section. Trousers require sewing the inner and outer leg seams for each leg, then joining the two legs together at the crotch seam before adding a waistband. Each garment follows a logical order of construction. To transform a flat piece of fabric into a garment that fits the human body, we use shaping techniques. Darts are one of the most fundamental. A dart is a V-shaped wedge of fabric that is folded and stitched to create a curve. You will find them most often at the bust, waist, and hips, where they help the garment contour smoothly over the body's curves. Pleats are another method, involving folds of fabric that are pressed or stitched into place. They can add controlled fullness, as seen in pleated skirts or the back of a man's shirt. Both techniques are essential for creating structure and a tailored fit. For a softer, less structured look, we turn to gathers and ruffles. Gathers are created by sewing long running stitches along the edge of the fabric and then gently pulling the threads to draw the fabric together into soft, even folds. This technique is perfect for adding volume to sleeves, waistlines, or skirt tiers. Ruffles are essentially a strip of fabric that has been gathered along one edge and then attached to the garment. They add a decorative, feminine touch and can be used to embellish necklines, cuffs, and hems. Both gathers and ruffles bring a sense of movement and romance to a design. Once your garment pieces are shaped, you will need to join them and create closures. Zippers are a common and practical choice. A centered zipper is sewn so that the fabric edges meet over the center of the zipper teeth, creating a symmetrical look. A lapped zipper is more traditional, where one side of the fabric overlaps the other, completely concealing the zipper teeth. For a truly professional and clean finish, especially on dresses and skirts, the invisible zipper is the best option. It is stitched in a special way so that when closed, the zipper disappears into the seam, leaving only a tiny pull tab visible. Of course, zippers aren't the only option. Buttons and buttonholes are a classic closure that can be both functional and decorative. Creating a buttonhole with a modern sewing machine is often a simple, automated process. You can choose from various styles, such as the standard straight buttonhole or a keyhole buttonhole for thicker fabrics. Once the buttonholes are made, you must carefully mark the position for each button. Sewing on buttons securely by hand is a skill worth mastering. Ensure you create a small thread shank, which allows space for the fabric to sit comfortably between the button and the garment when fastened. Sleeves are a defining feature of many garments, and they come in several distinct styles. The set-in sleeve is the most common type you will find on shirts and dresses. It is sewn into a curved armhole, creating a tailored and fitted look around the shoulder. This requires careful easing of the sleeve cap into the arm side for a smooth finish. The raglan sleeve is a more casual style, recognizable by its diagonal seam that runs from the underarm to the neckline. This design offers greater freedom of movement, making it popular for sportswear and relaxed tops. It is also generally easier to sew than a set-in sleeve. A third common style is the kimono sleeve, which is cut as one piece with the bodice of the garment. There is no seam joining the sleeve to the body, resulting in a wide, loose-fitting shape that drapes elegantly from the shoulder. This style is beautifully simple to construct and is often found in traditional Japanese clothing, as well as modern blouses and robes. Understanding these basic sleeve types allows you to choose the right style for your project and master the techniques needed to attach them neatly, which is a key part of creating a well-structured top or dress. The neckline is the focal point of a garment, and how you finish it can make all the difference. A facing is a separate piece of fabric cut in the same shape as the neckline, which is stitched to the inside to provide a clean, hidden finish. For a more decorative edge, you can use a binding, which is a narrow strip of fabric that encases the raw edge. Collars add another layer of detail. A stand collar, like a mandarin collar, stands up around the neck. A flat collar, such as a Peter Pan collar, lies flat against the garment. Each style requires a different construction method but adds immense character. Beyond the main body, it is the smaller components that complete a garment. Waistbands are essential for skirts and trousers, providing structure and a neat way to fasten the garment at the waist. They are typically reinforced with interfacing to give them strength and prevent stretching. Cuffs perform a similar function for sleeves, finishing the lower edge and providing a place for buttons or other closures. Finally, the hem is the finished bottom edge of any garment. There are many ways to sew a hem, from a simple turned and stitched hem to a blind hem for an invisible finish, each contributing to the overall quality of your work. To give your garments an extra layer of quality, comfort, and structure, you can add a lining or interlining. A lining is a separate lightweight fabric layer on the inside of a garment, like a jacket or a skirt. It conceals all the inner seams and construction details, helps the garment slide on easily, and adds a touch of luxury. An interlining is a layer of fabric sandwiched between the main fabric and the lining. It is used primarily to add warmth and body, often found in coats and other outerwear. Both techniques require careful cutting and assembly, but they elevate a homemade item to a truly high-quality piece. The inside of your garment should look just as neat as the outside. This is where seam finishes come in. An unfinished seam can fray and unravel over time, weakening the garment's structure. A simple and effective method is to use a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine along the raw edges of the seam allowance. For a more professional finish, you can use an overlocker, which trims and encloses the edge in thread all in one go. Other options include French seams, which enclose the raw edge within the seam itself, perfect for sheer fabrics, and flat felled seams, which are strong and durable, ideal for jeans. Edge finishes are just as important, especially on areas like facings and hems that are not enclosed in a seam. A simple method is to turn under the raw edge by a small amount and stitch it down. This is often called a clean finish. Pinking shears, which have a zigzag blade, can be used to trim the edge of stable, non-fraying fabrics to prevent them from unraveling. For a beautiful finish on lightweight fabrics, a narrow rolled hem, which can be done by machine or by hand, creates a delicate and professional edge. Choosing the right finish depends on your fabric and the type of garment you're making. Mastering these fundamental techniques, from precise cutting and marking to meticulous finishing, is the key to creating garments you can be proud of. Each step, Whether it is inserting a perfect zipper, turning a sharp collar point, or finishing a seam neatly, builds upon the last. It is this attention to detail that separates a homemade project from a handmade treasure. By taking your time and practicing these skills, you will develop the confidence to tackle any sewing pattern and produce beautiful, durable, and professional-looking clothes for any occasion.